back to my channel. My name is Erin and I am so excited that you decided to take time out of your day to spend with me, because today we will be wrapping up May, almost in March. We'll be wrapping up my May reading, going through all the books that I read for May. Some of these you will have seen in reading vlogs. Some of them will be in upcoming reading vlogs. I'm all over the place. My mood's all over the place. I'm coming up off of a flare up that took me out for a minute, but I'm back and I'm okay, and I'm ready to yap about these books that I read in the month of May. As always, we are going to start off with our story graph statistics. So I read 9 books. I attempted 11. We'll talk about that later. My page count was 3,686 pages. And look at this, y'all. Listen at this. My average rating for the month was a 3.89. And that was without a 5-star. 3.89? We can work with that, because it might have been April, or I think it was April. I was telling y'all it was like my worst reading month ever. So to come back from that, to an almost 4.0 average rating, happy. We start from the DNFs and work our way up to the 5 stars, so we end on a good note. And yeah, let's just hop right into it. I ended up having 2 DNFs for the month of May, which was unfortunate, but it happens. And the first one I want to talk about is How to Outwit a Wizard. This is the second book in the 7 Suitors for 7 Witches books by Amy Boyles. The first one I think was How to Fail the Fae. So the setup of this one was actually really interesting, and I was excited to read it. It's supposed to be a Freaky Friday type of situation. So we're following Blair, who works in the family's magical bookshop, but the magic starts failing within the family, and the only thing for Blair to do to kind of save her family's magic is to get married. And so they host this witchy ballroom dance ball type situation so that Blair can find a suitor. Blair has a very interesting power, and that is kind of her hang up as well. And whatever this power is, it doesn't really draw people into her. If anything, it pushes them away. So that is also what is making it a little harder for her to marry as well. And then we have Devlin, who is a wizard inventor who has never gotten over Blair. They grew up together and had this sort of romance, but then I think Devlin cheated on her, and so Blair just has a bad taste in her mouth about Devlin and doesn't want anything to really do with him, but neither of them have ever really gotten over each other. Okay, so I ended up DNFing this book about 37% in, and I was so sad because I really like Freaky Friday and I was very interested to see how this one was going to be done. And I did get to the Freaky Friday swap, but it just wasn't enough to keep me hooked, to keep me interested in this book. One of the main problems for me was that I didn't like Blair. And it's hard to read a book where you just don't vibe with the main character, you don't vibe with the person whose head you're in. Like, it's very difficult to finish on like a book when you feel that way. I didn't particularly find anything really interesting outside of the whole Freaky Friday situation, and so yeah, I just decided to cut it sooner rather than later, just because I wasn't really having a great time with this. These are interconnected standalones, so there's a possibility that I will pick up another book about another sister if it sounds interesting, but as of right now, this is going to be it for me for this series. Next up, we have my second DNF for May, and this is The Balance of Fate by Raquel Raelynn. So we are following Lucia, whose grandmother becomes sick, and because of that she has to leave her sheltered life and travel to the Academy for Mystics to compete in the Triune, which is 3 events where she will compete against vampires and werewolves to take her grandmother's place as the guardian vessel of a destructive celestial of magic and prove her worth as heir to her royal coven. But her heart is pulled into directions when she falls for her rival Adelaide, a troublesome vampire who doesn't play by the rules. Lucia is forced to choose between the traditions that hold her coven together and the passion that could tear her world apart. And I was reading the synopsis because y'all know I will accidentally spoil a book. So yeah, I did have this at about 36% in just because it felt a little boring. And I think that was in part of me not loving our main character again. Lucia is a witch who has not come into her power, so she thinks she doesn't have any. They are a part of the royal coven, so she is in line next to take over, but she can't take over because she doesn't have any magic. And so it's just, yeah, her whole family, the coven, everyone treats her sideways because of this. And usually when main characters are in this situation, they have some fight in them. They're trying to combat this. They're trying to find other ways to make up for not having that power. But this just felt like a pity party. Lucia was just very in her head and very sad about not having any power and just letting people treat her any type of way and talk to her any type of way. And she was a very naive person as well because of the sheltered life that she lived. And I just wasn't connecting with her. We met Adelaide, the love interest, very early on in the story. And I don't know. I wanted to wait until the romance like really kicked in to see if that would make the story better for me. But then I was thinking like, you know, if you're not loving the characters that this is going to be about and the world isn't, you know, that interesting to you, why would the romance make it any better? And I could already tell that I wasn't going to care enough to want to continue on in the series. I think this is a duology. So I was like, why even? Yeah, that was my DNFs. Luckily it was only 2 of them because for a second there I was worried because I'm like, look, these 2 came back to back and I'm like, is this the type of month we're going to be having? But no, it got better. How much better? But it did get better. Alrighty, so let's move into the 3 stars that I have for the month. I think I only have 1. Yeah, only have 1 3-star, and that was A Curious Beginning by Deanna Rayburn, the first book in the the first book in the Veronica Speedwell series. This is a historical mystery where we're following Veronica. So after burying her spinster aunt, orphan Veronica is free to resume her world travels in pursuit of scientific inquiry and the occasional romantic dalliance. As familiar with hunting butterflies as with fending off admirers, Veronica wields her butterfly net and a sharpened hat pin with equal aplomb. And with her last connection to England gone, she intends to embark upon a journey of a lifetime. But fate has other plans, as Veronica discovers when she thwarts her own abduction with the help of an enigmatic German baron who has ties to her mysterious past, promising to reveal in time what she knows about that plot against her. The baron offers her temporary sanctuary in the care of his friend Stoker, who is a reclusive historian, as intriguing as he is bad-tempered. It was a fun time, I think. I really enjoyed Veronica as a main character. I just like how she thought. I liked her whole attitude. I liked that she was a very honest, a very blunt person. And that I also thought that the banter between Veronica and Stoker was really great. I love banter, and you know, the way that they talk to each other, it did it for me. I really liked that. I don't think that I will be continuing on with this series, and I think that's strictly because I am not really a big mystery reader. I kind of dabble in them occasionally when like the mood strikes, but I probably don't read more than like 5 a year. So for me to try to get through this like 10 book series, it's a big commitment, okay? It's too big of a commitment for me. But I will say that, you know, it was a nice time. I am a little disappointed by my reading experience of this because I just feel like people love Veronica Speedwell, and I wanted to be a member of the club who also loved Veronica, and I liked her in this book, but I didn't love it. So yeah, it was fine. It's not going to be something that was memorable for me, but I mean, you know, it gave something, so that's a plus. Moving into the 3.5 stars, we have Advika and the Hollywood Wives by Kirthana Ramisetti, and this is like a literary mystery type book where we follow Advika, who ends up married to a Oscar-winning Hollywood producer who is, I think, about 40 years her senior, and he has a string of wives behind him. I think Advika ends up being like his fourth or fifth wife, and he starts showing some behaviors that make Advika uncomfortable. They end up having this whirlwind romance where they're married within 3 months, I think, of like meeting each other. And so, you know, people don't really show their full person until they get what they want. And so once they're married, he begins to show himself. And so one of his ex-wives dies, and in her will she left a note that said for what was his name? Was it Adrian? Was it Adrian? No, I don't know where Adrian came from. Julian is his name. So Julian's ex-wife dies, and in her will leaves a note for Julian's newest child bride, is how she referred to Advika, and says that if she divorces Julian, she will give her not only $1 million, but a film reel that contains a secret that could change her life as well. So now Advika is like, hold on. This woman died, so it's not like she actually wants Julian anymore. So I need to do some investigation into these relationships to see who I'm involved with, because I'm uncomfortable at this point. And so we follow Advika as she, you know, learns more about Julian, learns more about herself and what she is willing to accept and what all the things, okay? And I enjoyed this. I thought that it was, you know, really good. I personally am not a fan of age gap romances, but this one felt okay, I guess, mainly because I feel like Advika was old enough to, you know, but I made an exception for this one. Probably would have rated this higher, but the epilogue I did not like. There were some decisions that Advika made that I just did not agree with, and I also don't feel like we even really needed the epilogue. I feel like the story had kind of wrapped up beforehand and, you know, was fine. So the epilogue really like did not make my experience great, and that was unfortunate for me. But yeah, 3.5 stars. I had a time. I also read Being Hospitable by Meka James, and this is a little romance about Kiki Jenkins, who knows that opening her home to her best friend's younger sister means giving up some solitude. What she doesn't expect is for her new roommate to become temptation in the form of novelty panties and flirty innuendos. But Charlie is off limits for several reasons. Charlie wants to be seen as more than her brother's little sister, and she wants Kiki to do the seeing. Her new internship provides the perfect opportunity. Plan in motion, she is not going to let their close living quarters go to waste. This arrangement is supposed to be temporary, but as they grow closer, a permanent change of address might be in order. I rated this a 3.5 star. It was a cute little novella, very spicy novella, and I didn't love it. Clearly, if I gave it 3.5 stars, I didn't really understand why they liked each other, and I think that was, you know, the hardest part for me. Like, I could totally see how they were attracted to each other, liking, hooking up with each other, all of that, but an actual relationship forming, I don't know. I do like that Kiki made sure that they didn't become like a secret or have this relationship in secret. She was like, if we're gonna do this, we're gonna tell your brother, and that's gonna be that. Like, I'm not hiding from him, and I respect her for that. It just felt like everything kind of happened a little fast, and I think that's because they already knew each other, so they didn't have to build this relationship. They already had it, and it was just kind of like flipping it to see it in a different light. But I don't know, it did just feel like something was missing for me. Not really sure what that was, but I did have a good time. You know, a time was had. That's all I can really say about it, because I mean, it was like 70 pages, so yeah. Moving into our 4 stars, let's talk about Flirting Lessons by Jasmine Guillory. This is her newest romance and her first sapphic romance, so I was really excited to pick this up because I think I have read almost everything that she has published, so you know, I had to be in on the first sapphic book that she put out. And in this, we're following Avery, who's almost 30. She just has come out of a long-term relationship. She wants to explore dating, especially women. She's never really dated a woman before, and she wants to learn how to flirt and kind of do all the things that she kind of feels like she missed out on in this long-term relationship. And she kind of, well, Taylor enlists herself in helping Avery learn how to flirt and how to move through life and kind of just gain confidence in general. Avery is known as the playgirl of the Napa Valley area. You know, she is the big flirt. She doesn't really have serious relationships. She's not really looking for that. And so this feels like a perfect thing to kind of help Taylor, because her best friend bet her that she could not make it to Labor Day without sleeping with someone. So she felt like this challenge with Avery was the perfect distraction for her. And so eventually it becomes this friends to lovers type situation, and I really enjoyed this. I thought it was a very quick read. It was hard to put down. I kind of like flew through it when I read it, so that's always a plus. I was able to relate to both Taylor and Avery in very different ways. My problem with this book was that Taylor had some very bad friends, okay? I did not like her friend group at all. They were shady. They were talking about Taylor behind her back. I just did not like or agree with Taylor's friends, especially Taylor's best friend Erica. Me and her have real beef. Like, I want to meet her in the backyard and we need to fight, because she just was not a friend at all. And the little redemption that Jasmine Guillory tried to do for her, no, not working. She doesn't get redemption because she was just such an awful friend. But 4 stars, I think Jasmine Guillory succeeded in writing her first sapphic romance, and you know, I would be okay with more. My next 4 star is going to be Godly Heathens by H.E. Edgmon, and this is a fantasy book where we are following these gods who have been kicked out of their own world and now kind of bounce around from human to human in a specific family line. We're following Jem, who is a non-binary teen. Jem is known for being their peers' queer awakening and leans on charm to disguise the anxious mess they are beneath. The only person who really knows them is their best friend Enzo, who is another trans kid who lives thousands of miles away in Brooklyn. But even Enzo doesn't know about Jem's dreams, so these are some really weird dreams, but it's actually the things that are from Jem's god personality. Okay, they're in these bodies of teenagers, but they're gods, but they don't know that they're gods until their memory is triggered, and Jem's memory hasn't been triggered yet. I don't know if that makes sense, but I tried, okay? I tried. So there's a new girl in town named Willa May who acts like she and Jem are old companions and seems to know everything about them, even the things that they've never told anybody, okay? So when Jem is attacked by a stranger claiming to be the goddess of death, Willa May saves her life and finally offers some answers. She and Jem are reincarnated gods who have known and loved each other across lifetimes. But Jem, or at least who Jem used to be, hasn't always been the most benevolent deity. They met a lot of enemies in the pantheon, enemies who, like the goddess of death, will keep coming. It's a good thing they still got Enzo, but as worlds collide and the past catches up with the present, Jem will discover that everyone has something to hide. This, to me, it is marketed and it is YA, but these are adults in teenagers' bodies. So some of the things that are discussed in this book and some of the conversations that they have and some of the things that they say, I'm like, is this what? Probably not. It would probably fit more in the new adult section, or maybe even an adult. I don't know. It just felt a little for YA for me. I think it had a really interesting discussion on what it means to be a villain and how you can be the villain in someone else's story without even intending to. It also makes you question, like, what makes a person a villain? You know? So I really enjoyed that conversation as well. I feel like this has some great representation of Indigenous queer teens, and I loved that. I think this definitely needs more hype, more people to pick it up and read it. And it's only a duology, so I am excited to pick it up and see how this ends, because this went some places that I was just not expecting. Okay, but yeah, I had a great time with this. 4-star. The next 4-star is going to be Fury Song by Rosaria Munda. This is the final book in the Aurelian Cycle series that starts with Fireborn. And I could not be happier that I have finally finished this series. It only took me a million years to finish it, okay? But I am so happy that I did. This book was a lot of things. This book was sad. It was bittersweet. It was heartbreaking. It was justice. It gave justice, okay? A lot of things. And one thing that I will say about this book and this series is just like, it's very reminiscent of the Hunger Games, and I hate to even use that comparison, but in the way that you don't realize how young some of these kids are when they have the weight of the world on their backs, just the same way that Katniss was supposed to be the face of this revolution as a teenager. Like she didn't get to be a kid, and that is so unfortunate. But I feel the same way about Annie and Lee and about some other characters that I can't tell you about because they are not in the first book, so I don't want to spoil that for you. But these teenagers did not get to be kids. They were the ones running the show, and it pissed me off because I'm like, there are adults in this book. What are y'all doing? Nothing. Y'all are letting the kids run everything, letting them take responsibility for everyone in this world, country, whatever the heck. And that is so unfair. I love the dragons in this series though. I really like how the connection with the dragons is set up. I thought that was pretty cool. I liked how political this series was. I enjoyed how in this book in particular we got to really dive into more of the personal relationships and romantic relationships that we were just kind of getting sprinkles of in the other books. I thought that this was a really good wrap up to the series, and no, it didn't wrap up in a nice, neat, pretty bow, but I think that's part of why I liked it, because it was a realistic ending, and it felt like with the journey that the characters have been on throughout this series, they ended, it made sense, you know, and that's what we like. We like things to make sense. So yes, happy that I finally finished this series. My next 4-star of May is going to be The Poisons We Drink by Bethany Baptiste. This is a young adult fantasy about witchers, okay? And it's in a country divided between humans and witchers. Venus Stoneheart hustles as a brewer, making illegal love potions to support her family. And when an enemy's iron bullet kills her mother, Venus's life implodes. Keeping her reckless little sister Janice safe is now her responsibility. When the powerful Grand Witcher, the ruthless head of her coven, offers Venus the chance to punish her mother's killer, she has to pay a steep price for revenge. The cost: brew poisonous potions to enslave DC's most influential politicians in order to pass legislation that will protect witchers for years to come. As Venus crawls deeper into the corrupt underbelly of her city, the line between magic and power blurs, and it's hard to tell who to trust, herself included. And this was a surprise for me. if you do read this book, I suggest that you read the author's note at the beginning, because it just puts everything into such a deeper context, because she said that she wrote this book through her frustration for what was happening in our country, what was happening to Black people. And you can see a lot of her frustration through this book, through these characters, through what is happening to these characters. There's so many parallels, and I just think it gives such a deeper meaning to what you are reading. Also, this book features queer characters, and I did not know that until I actually started reading that. So there you go, if you are looking for that. It's also a standalone, and you know, we love a standalone because we rarely get them. So yes, this was a lot of things. If you have read Blood Like Magic by Lucille Sandberry, then I think you would really enjoy this, because it gives off similar vibes. In my opinion, I probably would have rated this higher, but Venus's little sister Janice, that little girl got on my nerves, okay? And yes, I do have to check myself when I'm reading YA, because teenagers are going to be teenagers, and teenagers do dumb shit. Teenagers are usually wild, and you know, they are frustrating. I really connected to, felt bad for all the things when it comes to Venus, because if you are an older sibling, then you completely will understand why she does a lot of the things that she does. And she just had to grow up really early. And again, kids not getting to be kids is so sad and frustrating, and it's one of the things that like really pisses me off. But I really enjoyed the magic in this, and like the way that the witch-y things worked. It was a good debut. I'm happy that I read it. I will be recommending it going forward. 4 stars. And we have 2 books left. I did not have a 5-star in May, but I did have 2 4.5 stars. So I'm going to tell you about those. The first one that I have is The Stone Sky by N.K. Jemisin. This is the conclusion to the Broken Earth trilogy that starts with the 5th season. And y'all, I have never, and probably will never, read anything like this again, you know? And here's the thing. Going into this book, I was scared, okay? I was scared, I was nervous, I was anxious. There were things that I wanted to happen, and I was just, by the time I got to this book, you kind of know N.K. Jemisin's style, and I knew that she was not gonna wrap this up with like a cute happily ever after, everybody is happy and living their best life. Like, I knew that that was not going to happen, but I could still hope, and I did still hope. And were my feelings shattered? Of course. But even though things did not wrap up happily, I do feel like it was a realistic ending. It was the one that I kind of expected. Just, you know, I was being Delulu about. I love these characters so much. I feel so many things for them. I don't even know what to say. I don't know what to say. I do love that we got to learn more about one of my favorite characters from the second book in this. Like, that made me really happy, because I just formed an attachment to this character in the second book, and to get to learn more about them just made me happy. I felt like this was the easiest book out of the series to read for me, but maybe that was because, like I said, by the time I got to this book, I had learned N.K. Jemisin's writing style, and you know, kind of knew what to expect. I knew the characters in the world. It was just an expansion of all that, so I was like in it at that point. So maybe that is why that I felt that way. But anyway, I'm kind of sad, kind of happy that I finished the series, and yeah, I don't know what to say. I just really loved it, okay? Like, that's all I got. And the last book that I want to talk about in this video was also a 4.5 star, and that is Her Majesty's Royal Coven by Juno Dawson. The only thing that I knew about this was that it was a coven of witches that was supposed to protect Queen Elizabeth, and I didn't really know anything other than that. And so yeah, that was enough of a hook for me. But going and actually reading this, it was not it was what I expected, but it wasn't what I expected. It was a lot more of us following these 4 main characters through their lives and how kind of like what their friendship has evolved into over the years, and also following their individual stories as well. And basically there has been this prophecy that a young warlock of extraordinary capabilities is going to basically come in and destroy everything. And so one of the main characters, Helena, who is still the head of Her Majesty's Royal Coven, is trying to basically take out this young boy. But it's a young boy, so there are conflicting beliefs within the friend group, and they're trying to figure out what to do with this boy, how to stop him from ending the earth, and all these things. And I feel like that was a really bad explanation or description, but I don't want to give you too much. Yeah, because I don't want to give away too much. But anyway, I really liked this writing style. I liked the tone of this book. I like what Juno Dawson has to say. I like what she has to say. She feels like she is well researched. I feel like she is very aware of things that are not only, because this is set in England, so not only what's going on in England, but it does mirror a lot of things that are going on in the US as well. And I like her stance on this. This is very political, and not in a sense of like dealing with politics directly, but how politics and the way that people think affects everyday life. That's more on the side that it's on. And I will tell you straight up that this book features transphobia, and if that is going to be something that bothers you, then I would suggest you not pick it up. Now hear me out, it does not go unchecked. Juno Dawson checks it at every turn, but one of our main characters is very insufferable, very closed-minded, very, I wanted to fight her the entire time. Like, I absolutely fully hated her with my whole chest. But I think by the time you get to the end, you will find that her ending was very much deserved and very satisfying. So yeah, this is what I like, what I think is a great example of a non-cringy, inclusive book that doesn't feel like it's trying hard to be inclusive. And I liked that. We have characters of all races, all genders, all, what's the word? Can't even think of the word. All identities, all the things. And it didn't feel awkward or forced or anything like that. I had a fun time. 4.5 stars. I'm excited to see where we're gonna go in this series. I think the final book comes out in July. So I think I set up a good time to start this, because now I can just binge them all. And so yeah, those are the 10 books that I attempted to read for the month of May. It was a pretty decent reading month, besides not having a 5-star and DNFing 2 books. But yeah, I don't have a lot to say. I really don't. So thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for liking, commenting, sharing, anything that you do to support me and my channel. It is very much appreciated. I hope that you have the best day that you possibly can. Remember to take care of yourself, and I will catch you in the next video. Bye.